Well, I think this is going to be really interesting today, Amber.
Oh, yeah.
This segment on the Morning Brew is brought to you by our good friends at Albuquerque Theater Guild, your guide to live theater in Albuquerque, and we have a lot of quality theater, and you want to stay up with everything that's going on stage around town and live theater. It's abqtheater.org, the Albuquerque Theater Guild. Well, this is, I first saw this show in the newspaper. It's called I Am My Own Wife, and it's a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright Doug Wright that wrote this thing, and we have the director and the actor here today. Hal Simons is here, and good to see you, Hal. Thanks for coming. You directed Sweeney Todd.
Yep.
Last time you were here on the show, but now you're getting directed
by Lou Clark.
Lou, how are you? Lou Clark is here.
Yeah.
You get to tell him what to do now, huh?
Yeah, that's not really my style of directing. It's more facilitative. That's why we've been friends for 10 years. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. And in fact, this play is a remount of a production we did 8 years ago for the Vortex's 30th anniversary season. So they asked us to bring it back, and at the time that we first did it, a lot of people were kind of curious who was directing Hal. Since we both met as graduate students at UNM in the theater department, so I was relatively new to town, and they were like, who is this lady that gets to direct the guy who directs a lot of people in Albuquerque, you know? So that was fun.
It's that special relationship that you have, obviously, that makes this work.
I think so, yeah.
A great deal of trust between the two of you.
He plays 35 characters in one night, and that's a feat for any actor, you know. So it's in the initial rehearsal process. We actually did it as a staged reading at UNM in 2005, when we were both students there, and then the Vortex decided they really liked the script, they wanted to pick it up. And so we spent about 10 weeks rehearsing the original production and just breaking it down into small chunks, which you have to do when there are that many characters in a play.
Now this character is a transformative person. Is that an understatement, Al?
Yeah. The main character, Charlotta von Malsdorf, lived almost her entire life as a transvestite, starting as a teenager during the Third Reich.
Wow. That alone had to be difficult.
As the playwright says, I can only imagine.
Yeah. And you play this character. And the character is very much an artist, a Renaissance person, all of these things. Can you describe what he or she is interested in?
Antiques, specifically antiques of the Gründerzeit period, Germany 1890 to 1900. And then we find out there was maybe more to her than met the eye.
Yes.
How interesting. Yes. I'm just reading this. As I was reading the top, I couldn't even believe that this is a true person. The extraordinary true story of Charlotte von Malsdorf, an East Berlin transvestite and celebrated collector of the Wilhelm II antiques.
Right.
She successfully navigated the two most oppressive regimes of the 20th century, the Nazis and the Communists, doing this while she's openly gay and in drag, and was distinguished with Germany's Order of Merit after Berlin Wall came down. And you get to play all of her?
Well, her and the playwright and the playwright's childhood friend and various...
Many other, you know, there are Stasi agents, Nazi officers, all kinds of characters.
Crazy. And you're changing costumes?
No.
How does that work?
The concept of the show, and I'll tell you, when they did it on Broadway, they had this fancy scrim, and the actor did have just simple costumes, meaning not many costume changes, but they had a scrim, and it would light up, and behind it you would see all these amazing objects like gramophones and polyphones that Hal will talk about as this character. But because we had a very limited production budget at the Vortex, actually the concept of the show is that really Hal creates all these things. We don't have all these fancy things. So as he describes them, you know, the idea is that he's so good at what he does, and he is, that the audience will see those things. And so, and the other thing to add about Charlotta being an antiques collector, and one of my favorite lines of the play, and I think I can say this without giving anything away, is that Charlotta really looks at these objects as reminiscent of the people that they belong to. So especially living through World War II and the Holocaust, you know, she has these lines where she says, you know, these objects, you know, became these people. You know, so it's a really beautiful metaphor, as she says, for living and for life. So it's a, it's a real, she was distinguished for this medal because she preserved so much of history that would have gone untold. And she preserved, you know, things like an entire Weimar cabaret in her basement. So, so her home became a place for gay and lesbian people to gather. It became almost a community center of sorts. And she preserved culture, so it wasn't just the objects, but it was the culture and the lives that would have, you know, really had no gathering place.
It just strikes me that this is a remarkable theater experience, that if you want to see this. I Am My Own Wife. When performances, Vortex, give us the details, Lou.
It opens, we have a preview tonight, so if anyone wants to come down, it's $7. You can come down at 7:30 and hang out with us for final dress rehearsal. And then we open tomorrow night, Friday night, July 11th. There'll be a gala after the opening.
Wonderful.
Hal and I are going to do a talk back on Saturday night with the audience of this weekend, and the show runs 3 weekends through July 27th.
Yeah, that talkback's a great idea because you talk about what everybody just saw. And you want people walking away from this performance going, okay, let's discuss this. What did we see? What did we just witness?
There's a lot.
I think you're an amazingly talented man, and congrats on this performance. And thanks so much for being here, Lou.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you. Hey, this segment brought to you by the Albuquerque Theater Guild. There you go, abqtheater.org, for all that's going on stage and live theater around the community. I want to thank our guests. We'll be back on the Morning Brew after this.